Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Ellis, and I did my project on the Speak Out Against Domestic Violence campaign done by Avon in Bulgaria. So, first, a little bit of background on Avon. Avon is a multi level marketing corporation that specializes in different beauty products. So, this means that their clients are also their employees. So, their clients, they are finding people to sell their products to their friends and family, things like that. And Avon was actually founded in 1886 in North America, and they're now a national company headquartered in Europe. And Avon as a brand puts a heavy emphasis on women. So next we'll move on to their mission, vision, and values. So I won't read the whole mission, but their mission is very women empowerment oriented, and they've actually made statements that violence against women is one of their philanthropies, and they feel very strongly about it, and you can see that in the mission statement. Their vision is to be the company that best understands and satisfies the product, service, and self-fulfillment needs of women globally, which you can see is also very women empowerment oriented vision. And then lastly, these are the values. Next, we'll look at a SWOT analysis for Avon and this campaign specifically. So one of the strengths for Avon is that they have a history of women empowerment, as you could see from their mission, vision, and values. They also have a largely feminine customer base, as well as most of their employees are female as well. And the corporation officially joined the fight against domestic violence in 2004. This is important because Avon's been showing their support behind violence against women for some time now, which makes them a more credible organization. And for some weaknesses for Avon, they do have a high turnover rate of employees. And for their specific situation in Bulgaria, Bulgarians are less open to conversations such as domestic violence, and just controversial topics like that are kind of taboo over there. So, some opportunities they possess are the ability to make a statement and help women in need. And also, they have the opportunity to partner with the Alliance for Protection Against Domestic Violence in Bulgaria. Some threats that they face with this campaign is that Bulgaria is such a conservative company and the topic of domestic violence is taboo, so they might be looked down upon because they're taking a stance on this topic and making it so public. And also, just the hostility around the topic from media and the government is a problem as well. So, moving on to Bulgaria's political system, the political rights rating by the Freedom House Democracy Index is a 2, which is pretty good. Bulgaria is a democracy with multiple parties. The party in power often changes with terms, but the majority of political players tend to be far right. Bulgaria had a parliamentary system and they are part of the European Union. And something important to know about Bulgaria is that it is a largely patriarchal society, so women's rights are sometimes looked down upon or undermined, and this has been seen with practice in the past, but it is improving as years go on. And the government is also known for lacking transparency, and they also lack safeguards that fight against corruption. So, moving on to the CPI index, Bulgaria has an average CPI rating of 38.67 as of recent years. This is pretty good in comparison to the world average of 43. In most recent ratings, Bulgaria scored a 42, which is almost right on par with the world average, just a little bit below. And if we look specifically at the year that this campaign took place, which was 2014, you see that Bulgaria was actually at its peak CPI, which was 43 at the time. And that means Bulgaria was the least corrupt at the time of this specific campaign. Okay, so moving on to Bulgaria's economic environment, they are classified as a developing economy. And this is actually information for 2014, so that's when the campaign took place. I thought it was important to look at the economy at that time. But they're classified as an upper middle income country by the UN World Economic Situation and Prospects Report. They do have a lower public debt than most other countries in the European Union, but they also have a lower income level than other countries. Their GDP as of 2014 was 42.8 billion euros. They have an economic growth rate of 1.8%, which is just slightly lower than the desired rate of 2%, but it's not awful. Their unemployment rate was 10.4%, which is fairly high. One lev, which is the currency in Bulgaria, is equal to 0.56 US dollars. And then they are a high human development country with a ranking of 0.807. So the press freedom score as of 2014 in Bulgaria is a 29, meaning they are partly free according to Freedom House. They now have a score of 42, so they really have been going up over the years. In Bulgaria, the constitution does respect freedom of speech and press, and the government continues to uphold these rights. However, the government and other institutions are known for denying access to information, and the courts don't seem to be helpful in giving the people that access to information. The media has a history of being tied to the political party in power, so it's typical to see or hear accusations of political parties paying off media, online, broadcast media, or print media to speak in line with the party's views. There have also been cases of violence against the press, which is a major red flag, and ownership transparency rules are weak in Bulgaria. Moving on to technological development in Bulgaria, the internet penetration rate is 66%, and 85% of people in Bulgaria claim to use it once a day. The top sites used by Bulgarians are Google, Facebook, and YouTube. The literacy rate is 98.4%, which is fairly high. Men do tend to be more literate than women, with a 99% literacy rate compared to women who have just a 98% literacy rate, but it is pretty even. Media penetration, 52% of Bulgarians claim to be on social media. 94% of Bulgarians use some type of mobile phone, so that won't always be a smartphone. 96% use the television, and 63% have some sort of access to a computer, whether that be a desktop computer or a laptop. Next, we'll look at Hofstede's cultural dimensions in Bulgaria. Here in this chart, you can see an overview of the different areas. So we'll start with power distance. People are rather accepting of the fact that there is a hierarchy and everyone has a role, and that people just might be unequal in Bulgaria. And you can see that with their score of 70. They scored 30 on individualism. This means Bulgaria is a collectivist society and people are committed to the group. So they're committed to their personal circles, their families, friends, and their workplace. Bulgaria is actually a rather feminine society, scoring a 40 in masculinity. People are focused on work as a way to live, and they want quality work environments, and they're focused on their own well-being. The uncertainty avoidance score is 85, which is very high. So they prefer to avoid uncertainty. Rules are important to people in Bulgaria, and they are motivated through security. Long-term orientation scored a 69. This means that Bulgaria is a pragmatic culture. People value truth in time, and they have a tendency to save and invest, and they value thriftiness and perseverance. Lastly, they have a very low score in indulgence of 16. This means they're a restrained culture. They don't put a large emphasis on leisure time or gratification, and oftentimes restrained cultures have a tendency of pessimism. So now moving into the campaign itself and its audiences. The main primary audience of this campaign were women ages 18 and older, since these are typically the people who are affected by domestic violence. Also, Avon's customer base and their employee base are typically women ages 18 and older. But another major audience were media outlets, because media outlets are the ones who really set the tone for conversation in Bulgaria. So they wanted to use media to make the topic less taboo and bring more awareness. Secondary audiences include allies of domestic violence victims, including shelters, organizations, and donors. This is because Avon aimed to bring awareness and try to get people to feel more comfortable seeking asylum. So it's important that these shelters, organizations, and donors are on board with this campaign. Next are government organizations, since they have the power to sway topics such as this. And then also families, since domestic violence can affect everyone, not just women. So let's look at the demographics and psychographics of these audiences. In Bulgaria, 85% of the people are Bulgarian, followed by Turkish and then Romanians. There is more females in Bulgaria than males. For every 1,000 males, there are 1,053 females. And most females in the country are between the ages of 25 and 54. The marriage rate is 3.8% per every 1,000, but marriage rate is decreasing and divorce rate is increasing. Some psychographics of the people is that 1 in 4 women in Bulgaria are actually victims of domestic abuse, which is much higher than most places in the world. There are an equal amount of men and women on Facebook, but there are more women on Instagram. They put an emphasis on the opinions of others, Bulgarians do, which could play an important role in how people react to campaigns. And young Bulgarians are more likely to make donations than older generations, which can play a factor in the charitable donations that occur in this campaign. And then 28 is the average age of marriage for a woman. So now let's get into a campaign overview. So basically in 2011, Avon began their official domestic violence campaign in Bulgaria. And since then, they've been doing different editions every year of the campaign to push out the message in different ways. So in 2014, they released the ad on the left, which promoted a violence coverage concealer to the media. And the media was obviously very shocked by this. They were shocked that Avon was promoting such a taboo product and honestly just a taboo topic in general. Avon then held a media event a few days later to release what the real product was going to be, which was an earring. And the proceeds of sales from this earring would benefit victims of domestic violence and any organization that was trying to help those who were suffering with domestic violence. So once this was announced, the media started publishing about this, and it was followed with a whole campaign by Avon to push out this message even further through many channels. So the output and impact objectives for this campaign were really focused on helping the victims themselves. So the goals for the campaign were to help end the cycle of domestic abuse in Bulgaria and to increase the awareness of availability of resources to domestic violence victims. Specifically, Avon wanted to raise 20,000 euros to support victims, and they also wanted to see an increase of women who seek asylum from domestic violence in Bulgaria. So they were doing this from proceeds from the earring. They wanted to raise enough money to donate to different organizations, but they also wanted to see an increase in women who were searching for help and utilizing these organizations. So now let's break this down and look at a timetable of the campaign. So it started in 2011 when Avon announced that they would be teaming up with the Alliance for Protection Against Domestic Violence to start the campaign in Bulgaria. Between the years of 2011 and 2013, they launched multiple editions of the campaign that involved various events and channels that I'll talk about later. In 2014 is when they launched the edition of the event that we had just spoke about. In 2014, they announced the violence coverage concealer to the public, and 5 days later, they announced the real product, which was the infinity earring that would benefit domestic violence victims. Throughout the rest of 2014, they participated in several other campaign strategies, which included print material, other partnerships, social media, and we'll go more into that later as well. And then in 2015 is when they completed their evaluation. So the main key message for this campaign was stated in the press conference, and it is that we will never create a product that would cover domestic violence. We have to speak out against domestic violence. So this is kind of seen through their publicity stunt where they announced this like really taboo product, but then came back and said, no, we're not just using this taboo product to cover it up. This is the actual product, which is the earring, and the earring will be used to speak out against the issue. So wearing the earring was meant to put a stop to domestic violence because it is an infinity symbol, which is a symbol that's attached to the support of domestic violence victims. And also since the fact that all proceeds of the earring were going to be donated. Key visuals for the story were from this famous actress, Desi, who was a domestic victim survivor, and she shared her story throughout the campaign. So the action and special event that really made this campaign so iconic was the fact that Avon put their whole reputation at risk by advertising this violence coverage concealer that was totally taboo for that culture, and really any culture. A product like that would have a controversy no matter where it was released at. So, of course, press and media flocked to the press conference whenever Avon was ready to explain themselves. So, whenever they revealed the true product, media just grabbed a hold of it because shock value really played an effect in this campaign. And then the action of donation was another driving factor in the success of this campaign because it played such a big role in making a difference in Bulgaria. So, some of the media and channels used in this campaign were partnerships, social media, visual media, and events. I'm also going to talk about some of the channels that were used in previous editions of the campaign because I do believe that it played a role in the success of the 2014 edition. So, Avon really wanted to create an all channels communication campaign to reach as many people as they could in as many ways as they could. So, in terms of partnerships, Avon did partner with a popular actress in Bulgaria, as well as the Alliance for Protection Against Domestic Violence, which is the largest non governmental organization in the country. So, that was a major factor in reaching the intended audiences. They used Facebook as a social media platform because that is the most widely used platform in Bulgaria. For visual media, there were posters, billboards, ads in metro stations and bus stops, as well as a photo campaign. The main event was the press conference where they released the product. And in past campaigns, some of the channels used were press releases, different events such as Miss Universe, Sofia Dance Week, a film festival, and they also used different billboard posters and metro station posters and stickers. So moving on to implementation of this campaign in Bulgaria. So I'm going to break it up into from 2011 to 2013, and then I'll do the 2014 edition by itself. But in 2011, there was a press release sent out to announce the philanthropy by Avon. And later that year, Miss Universe was actually held in Bulgaria. And when they heard about the domestic violence issue in the country and Avon's campaign, they decided to make the theme of the event fighting against domestic violence, which was a major milestone for the company. Avon also appeared at Sofia Dance Week, where Avon representative passed out informational materials at branded stands before the big performances. So they would sit outside the auditorium and pass out infographics. And they also appeared at the Love is Volley Film Festival, where a video was shown about the Speak Out campaign. So now moving on to the main campaign that occurred in 2014. So it began with the partnership with the Alliance for Protection Against Domestic Violence, and this really helped Avon reach who they needed to reach and get connected with the people who care about this topic. Then the major event was the media event to announce the charitable product, which was the earring. And Facebook was also used to begin a group where people can share their stories and support other victims. And I'll show you kind of what that looked like in the next slide. There was also a massive outdoor campaign where photos of the famous actress appeared on billboards, at metro stations, on bus stops, and it was a little bit of her story along with a photo of her with bruises on her face. There was also a photo campaign that showed real victims and advocates of domestic violence wearing the earring to advertise it. So on this slide, you can see some of the actual advertisements that were being used. So on the left are some of the Facebook advertisements. The top right are some of the photos that were being used in the photo campaign. And on the bottom right are the ads that appeared on billboards and metro stations, at bus stops, all of that. So moving on to the evaluation, this campaign was very successful. Over 25,000 euros were donated from earring sales alone, and they were donated specifically to a shelter in Dimitrov. And Avon also found a 30% increase in the number of women seeking help in the country, which is major coming from a country that suffered with this so badly. They also earned over 200 publications between print and online media between the years of 2011 and 2014. And just through these events alone, since 2011, so the Sofia Dance Week event, the Miss Universe event, and the media event, They reached more than 15,000 people. This was seen as the most effective domestic violence campaign in Bulgaria, and it really made a major change in the country. So, this success resulted in two awards, which were the 2015 Global Sabre Award and the BAPRA Bright Award, which is an award exclusive to Bulgaria. So, in conclusion, some lessons I learned is that it's really important for a corporation to have a relevant philanthropy that relates to its own personal brand. So, Avon works so closely with women that something like fighting against domestic violence is a very relevant topic to them. And since they do have a strong presence in Bulgaria and domestic violence is such a big problem in Bulgaria, it was important that they did something. And I think that was a major reason that it was so successful. I also learned that the strength of shock value is very important and that high risk comes high reward. So they really risk their reputation by putting out the violence concealer product. And a lot of people could have just turned their head from Avon and thought that that was too taboo, but it actually ended up benefiting them in the long run. Some specific recommendations I would have for the campaign is to continue with more editions. I didn't really read anything past 2014 that said they had done anything else in Bulgaria afterwards. So it would be interesting to know if they have or if they plan to, and if not, then I suggest they do. And another recommendation is to include Avon representatives in the social action more, because Avon representatives are just normal people, normal women, and anyone can become one. So I think that would be good to see just regular women supporting other women. I think that would be a really successful aspect. And here are my references to end out. Thank you for listening.